So when we talk about preparing for retirement, a lot of people treat it like a portfolio event. It's much bigger than that. It's a meaning event. And I don't know what Nathan meant by like preparing and getting it right. But for many people, preparation looks like financial preparation.
Hmm.
And we see that the people who are happiest in retirement, um, have prepared along five dimensions. And I actually talk about them in chapter one of The Soul of Wealth, right? So the first is, and as I go through these, I want you to think about the degree to which money can or cannot influence, sort of these five domains. The first is fun and leisure, right? People who are happy in retirement have adequate time for golfing, going to the beach, eating an ice cream cone, doing fun stuff, right? We tend to prepare for that. When we think about retirement, that facet of it tends to loom very large in our mind. The second one is the social component, right? Again, as I said earlier, a lot of people, men in particular, arrive at retirement woefully unprepared for friendship and connection. The third one is actually deep work. This is the one that people miss more than anything. Humans are wired to work. Humans are wired for struggle, and most of us get all the struggle we need at our day jobs, right? Like all the struggle we need and more at our day jobs. But you need something in retirement that is deep, focused work that's going to cause you to lose track of time and be really immersive. This could be, again, getting better in an instrument. This could be volunteer work. This could be a part time job, but you need something. The fourth thing that people who are happy in retirement have is a focus on something bigger than themselves. Could be community volunteerism, could be spirituality or religion, could be volunteerism or philanthropy. But getting outside of self is a key. I mean, every major philosophical and faith tradition would have this at the top of their list. This is huge. I mean, there's a reason that thousands of years of wisdom tell us to sort of get outside of ourselves and work on something bigger. And then the fifth one is that personal growth that we talked about before, right? It is not enough for you to solely work on your golf swing. You want to continue to be vibrant. You want to be learning and growing, right? So if you think about these, money helps most with the fun and leisure, and a lot of the other stuff we have to kind of go get ourselves. Like even the personal growth piece, like yeah, it'll pay for your therapy or it'll pay for your adult education class, but you still got to go. You still got to go, you still got to read the books. So those are the five areas, right? Have a little fun, do a little work, surround yourself with people who love you, focus on something bigger than yourself, and continue to grow and thrive. Those are the five areas. And when it comes to this question of spending money in meaningful ways that lead to flourishing and lasting happiness, for me, there's really three B's. And I think they're all sort of equally powerful. Your mileage may vary, pick your favorite. But if you want to spend money in ways that endure, it's believing, belonging, and becoming. So let me kind of break those down. Believing is this. We find in the research that people who are the happiest, people who live the lives that they rate as being purposeful and joyful, they operate by some sort of moral code. So this is you making the world a better place. Like whatever that looks like for you, that could be volunteerism or charity or kind of giving back, right? Um, for me, we're having a conversation here. I used to live in the Philippines. I have a big love for Filipinos and Filipino culture. They just had a big natural disaster there. Whenever that happens, and it happens a whole lot in the Philippines, I try and do something, whether it's reach out to someone I know there or give money or, fundraise or do something. That's believing, right? Like that's part of my moral code. That's how I feel like I can impact the world in a positive way. And consistently we see what's called pro-social spending, spending in ways that make the world better in ways that are important to you. That buys a lot of happiness. The belonging piece is all about relationships, right? Anything that you can do to deepen a relationship, that's money well spent. If that's taking your grandkid to a movie and to ice cream, that's money well spent. If that's bringing the family to a beach vacation, that's money well spent. Um, if that's buying a plane ticket so someone can come see you, all of that is going to really buy a lot of happiness in that belonging bucket. And then the third one, I think, is the one that we think of the least, perhaps, when we think about spending money in ways that lead to flourishing. This is becoming. Becoming is the people who are the happiest and live the lives that are the most meaningful, are they have a sense of who they could become and they put themselves on a path to become better. This is about self-improvement, about growth. So that becoming could be getting a massage, so you can relax a little bit and and have some well-earned R&R. That becoming could be going back and taking adult education courses. That could be taking piano lesson or going to therapy or a million things that make you more of the type of person that you want to be. So make the world a better place. That's believing. Um, be good to the people you love. That's belonging. And become better yourself. That's becoming. In the 50s, Betty Crocker came out with instant cake mix. And so, because of the Second World War, women had just entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers. You're beginning to see the rise of the dual income family, and people were looking for convenience, right? And so, out comes this just add water cake mix that tastes fantastic, right? Well, Betty Crocker thinks they have a hit, but they don't. And they start to see that people are reticent to buy this cake mix, and they dig in and do a little psychographic research. And the reason is because women in particular, moms in particular, think that it's too easy. It feels like cheating. And they're like, it doesn't even feel like I made the cake. Like it doesn't feel special just because it's too simple. And so Betty Crocker re-engineers, reformulates their cake mix to be more like what it is now. You got to add some vanilla and a couple of eggs and some water and some oil, and then you can make the cake mix. They actually dumb it down to make it a worse product. And then it was complicated enough that people were like, okay, now I made the cake. Like if I put the oil and the eggs and the water and the flavoring in, like, okay, now I can kind of claim it. And it's complicated enough that it works. I feel like for a lot of people, that's at play in markets. And I feel like some of the reason why we have a lot of research into people who work with financial advisors do demonstrably better than people who, like, in lots of predictable ways. They have higher returns, they're better at staying the course, they have higher levels of happiness, better marriages. Like it's just on and on and on. And look, the reality is for most folks, you could 60-40 Vanguard it and be okay if you could stay the course. Almost no one can. And I think one of the benefits of working with a financial advisor is that they complicate it just enough for it to feel hard enough for you to do what you ought to do, right? There's the planning, there's a little more sophistication, there's a few more bells and whistles to the program that help. That's your eggs and oil and vanilla. And I think that's powerful. So kind of back to my, 2 to 5% solution. I think practically speaking, There's nothing wrong in a limited way in complicating your financial life, candidly, perhaps a little unnecessarily, if it helps you stay the course. I don't think there's a data point on Earth that's going to change your mind. I think you have lots of data points. If David were sitting across from me, I think I would want to know a couple of things. One question I would ask David is I would say, hey, if someone handed you a crystal ball proving definitively that you could be financially secure, well into your old age, would you retire tomorrow? I suspect the answer is no, because that's effectively the information that he's getting with the
Mm-hmm.
Monte Carlo simulations. And if in fact the answer is no, then money isn't the obstacle and there's something larger at play. Which then leads me to my second question. It seems like David is assuming of himself that he's acting irrationally, that he should be retiring and that he's not, and that he's being whatever, stubborn or dug in or something, that he's being irrational. And I assume something different. I assume that there's a deeper reason why he's doing this. And I assume that there's something he's getting out of work that may not be showing up on a balance sheet. And that's consistent with a lot of the research. I mean, I wrote about in The Soul of Wealth some research that showed that recently retired folks are some of the some of the saddest folks on the planet, and it's because work brings so much into our lives that is non-financial. It brings us many of the B's that we talked about earlier, right? It brings us that belonging and that becoming. We have a team at work and we work with people we care about. We're getting promoted. We're learning new skills. We're growing. So those would be kind of my two questions for David, and I guess would be questions I'd ask him to reflect on or have that conversation with someone he cares about. If you had that certainty, would you retire tomorrow? My guess is no. And then if that's the case, then what might you be getting out of work that is actually serving you well? And if you do want to retire, maybe in my example, it's the relationships or the growth. Maybe if you really do want to retire, you need to make a plan for connectedness and growth outside of work. I think for men in particular, the research shows we fail to do this. Men tend to be sort of over indexed on their work relationships versus women who tend to have broader and stronger relational ties outside of work in addition to at work. And so those are real needs. I imagine that work's bringing that to your life. And if you want to retire, you just got to find a way to get those things somewhere else.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. This podcast is not engaged in rendering legal, financial, or other professional services.